Hi everyone, in this lesson we're going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. If you are in Ms. Drake's class, we're on page 27 in your Unit 6 packet. So the first example we're going to look at is x squared is equal to 4. Okay, so yesterday we looked at examples where you got a trinomial once you moved all the terms to the left-hand side, but this is going to be a little bit different, but the first step is still the same. We're going to move all of the terms to the same side of the equal sign. So we're going to take this 4 on the right-hand side, and we're going to subtract 4 from both sides, just like we did yesterday, because we want the equation to equal 0. So this is equal to 0, because 4 minus 4 is 0. And on the left-hand side, I can't do x squared minus 4 because they're not like terms, so I'm just going to write x squared minus 4. Okay, so yesterday, the expression on the left-hand side was a trinomial. Today, we're looking at what happens when we have a binomial. We're still going to factor this left-hand side, so we're going to put a double bubble, but we don't have to do our factor in sum table because we don't have a trinomial. This is a dots factoring, so the difference of two perfect squares. Okay, I know that because the square root of x squared, I'll write my notes over here, is x. So your first term here and here is x, and your square root of this second term, 4, is 2. So remember from last unit, this is a 2 and this is a 2. One of these signs is going to be plus and one is going to be minus. It doesn't matter which one you do where. I usually put the plus first and then the minus sign. Okay. So once I have the expression factored, I'm going to use the same process as yesterday, where I take both factors and set them equal to 0. So I set up a little table like this and I say, okay, x plus 2 is one of the factors. I'll set that equal to 0. And the other factor is x minus 2, so I'll set that equal to 0. Okay. Now I'm going to solve this one-step equation by subtracting 2 from both sides. And I'll get x is equal to negative 2. Okay, so that is one of my solutions. Okay. I'm going to have a second solution, which I'll get by solving this side, where I add 2 to both sides of the equation, and I get x is equal to 2. Okay, so this quadratic equation has two solutions. X is equal to negative 2 and x is equal to 2. So what that means is if you go back to the original equation, x squared minus 4, it means that both negative 2 and 2 would work if I plugged them into the original. So if I plugged in negative 2 squared, if I did this on my calculator, I should get 4 is equal to 4, so that checks. Okay, if I check this solution, positive 2 squared is equal to 4. If you put that into your calculator, you'll also get 4 is equal to 4. So both of these numbers make the original equation true. Okay, let's turn the page. Number 2 is very similar to number 1, so why don't you pause the video and try it on your own. Okay, hopefully you tried example 2, and since it's already set equal to 0, we're going to factor the left-hand side. It's the difference of two perfect squares, right? Because I have x squared, which is a perfect square. The square root of x squared is x. And I have a minus 9, and 9 is a perfect square. The square root is 3. So when I set up my double bubble, I'm going to have x and x, and then the 3 will go here and here. And one of these will be a plus and one will be a minus. Okay, then I'll set both factors equal to 0, so x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 3 equals 0. And then I'll solve both one-step equations. Okay, for this one, I'll subtract 3 from both sides. I'll get x equals negative 3. And then on this one, I'll add 3 to both sides, so I'll get x equals 3. So for this one, I have two solutions, x equals negative 3 and x equals 3. Okay, number 3 is very similar, so let's skip down to, let's say, number 4. Okay, this one's set equal to 0 already, so I'm still going to factor the left-hand side. It is the difference of two squares, so let me take the square root of both terms. The square root of 9x squared is 3x, and the square root of 1 is 1. Okay, so when I do my double bubble, oh, I don't have that much room here in the rectangle. Okay, I have 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1. Okay, so this time when I set both factors equal to 0, it's not just a one-step equation. You know what, I'm going to move my factors over here so I have more room to work. So 3x plus 1 equals 0, so that's the first factor. And then 3x minus 1 equals 0. That's the second factor. Okay, so I'm going to solve both of these separately to get my two solutions. So for this one, I now have a two-step equation to solve for x. So first I will minus 1 from both sides. 3x equals negative 1. I'll divide both sides by 3. And x equals, when I do negative 1 divided by 3, I'll get a decimal. We always want to leave our answer, if it's a repeating decimal, as a fraction. So I'm going to leave it as negative 1/3. So that is one of my solutions. Okay, to solve for the other solution, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. I'll get 3x equals 1. I'll divide both sides by 3. And x equals, this is the same thing, it's just a positive, so I'll leave it as a positive 1/3. Okay, so sometimes when we have these types of questions, we'll get fraction answers. It's totally fine. Okay, I think number 5 is also a fraction, so why don't you pause the video, try number 5, and then come back to check your work. Okay, so for number 5, it's not set equal to 0. I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides to get it set equal to 0. So I'll have 36w squared minus 100 equals 0. And now I have the difference of two squares. So I'm going to take the square root of both terms. So 36w squared, when I take the square root, is 6w. I think that's out of the window. There you go. Okay. And then the square root of 100 is 10. Okay, so I'll set up my two factors in my double bubble. Okay, the first term for both is going to be 6w. And the second term for both will be 10. And then, remember, one is always a plus and one is a minus. Okay, so these two parentheses are the two factors I'll set equal to 0. And then I can solve each one separately. So I have 6w plus 10 equals 0. And 6w minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so to solve this one, I will subtract 10 from both sides. I'll get 6w equals negative 10. Then I will divide by 6. And I'm going to simplify this fraction. It's not divisible, so I'll get negative 5/3. Okay, so we have one solution that's a fraction again. That's okay. And then we're going to solve the other one. Plus 10 on both sides. 6w equals positive 10. Divide both sides by 6, and w equals, again, I'm just going to simplify that fraction as positive 5/3. So notice for every single example that we did, the two solutions, oops, that's the bell, are just the positive and the negative of the same number. So positive and negative 5/3, positive and negative 1/3, positive and negative 3, and then on the page before you had positive and negative 2. Okay, so try the homework questions attached and let us know if you have any questions.